what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It is the aftermath, and we're getting after it tonight after a 48-14 win by the New England Patriots. Here's your color commentator from 98.5 The Sports Hub, Phil Perry, who did a fantastic job on the call. Really a ton of good information, delivered tight and concise with news you could use. Phil, before we get to Mike Vrabel's overall thoughts, yours are much more important. What were they?
Well, thanks for the kind words, first of all. Nice to have Bob Sosey, the legend, holding my hand through that ordeal. I would say this. I think big picture, if you're Mike Vrabel, of course you have to focus on the things that can be cleaned up, i.e. the early turnover, i.e. Some of the sloppy tackling I thought we saw at the end. But, Tom, to me, they were the harder charging team. You saw running backs running through people. You saw running backs and receivers refusing to go out of bounds and instead lowering the shoulder to pick up extra yardage. They weren't perfect as far as the penalties went. They were credited with 2. They had a couple more that were offsetting. They still blew the Commanders out of the water when it came to the penalty discrepancy. The Commanders, I believe, finished with 12 or 13. So they were the cleaner team. They were the harder playing team, in my opinion. And those are 2 things that I think you can build on if you're Mike Vrabel moving forward, knowing what he wants the identity of his team to be.
Yeah, I think this was a good night. That's a great way to end your thoughts and dovetail into mine. I think that this was a good identity establishing night because what players want is hard evidence that what they're doing is working, that what they're being asked to do will succeed when they go on the field. And we watched it and the pushback the players were giving a couple of years ago when they're like, this just isn't working. And the distress of those players when they could say, oh, shit, the next 4 months are going to suck. And they did. But now I see not just this game, because we have to attach this overarching caveat, and we will right now. It was the Washington Twos. It was the first preseason game. It matters not a lick more than Wednesday's practice or next Wednesday's practice against Minnesota. It's the same thing. However, when you couple Wednesday's joint practice when it was ones versus ones for a large portion of that practice, and the Patriots looked good, especially in their passing game, and then you marry it up with tonight, a clean first half in terms of penalties, a scoring play on a kickoff return, another near scoring play on another kickoff return for Antonio Gibson, and then to see the offense play with the physicality and take advantage of the personnel that they have with Josh McDaniels. I think that's my biggest takeaway. Clean, identifying a playing style, taking advantage of the personnel that you have. Those are your 3 good takeaways, regardless of opponent and quality of opponent on this night.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Josh McDaniels there too, because I did think in terms of that identity establishing thing that we're talking about, it wasn't just big picture. It wasn't just emanating from the head coach and what he wants. I think they were making statements all night in terms of what Josh McDaniels likes to do. The first play of this game, and you're right, all the appropriate caveats apply. 3 tight ends on the field, one of them at fullback, and they're just making, no bones about what they're about to do to you. They're going to run the football. When they got down deep into the red zone, they didn't get cute. They were smashing it into the middle of the line, and if that didn't work, they were pitching it outside. Boy, it felt like we had half a dozen crack toss plays. That's the play that James White ran into the end zone in overtime to beat the Falcons in Super Bowl 51.
Hey, Phil, and for a team that hasn't done a lot of goal line yet or short yardage to the ground, it shows that they've adopted the mentality.
That's it. That's what you're looking for, I think, if you're McDaniels. This is who we're going to be. Yeah, we're going to be able to throw it all over the lot. Yeah, we've got a top 5 pick at quarterback who's got a great arm. We've got some seemingly explosive talent at the running back position, at least. But we're going to grind teams down. I thought that was a nice byproduct of the night tonight, was that we got a real feel for what McDaniels wants to do philosophically. Not saying it's going to be what they do all 17 games of the regular season, but at their core, this is like their foundational stuff that they're showing early in the preseason. This is who they want to be.
I'm going to go way off the board here with the first sound I want to throw to Annie Hall, who is doing the producing tonight on Friday night. Thanks, my friend. Way off the board. This is Mike Vrabel at the mic talking about Javon Baker's contributions on special teams and as a downfield blocker. And the reason I highlight this is you have a coach now who's trying to co-opt isn't the right word, reach players who might have been seemingly unreachable, at least in the eyes of folks like us who are like, okay, he's cooked. He's not going to make the team. So he's giving effort. He's trying to give Vrabel what he wants. He seemingly has a more defined role and understands what he's supposed to be as a professional. And Vrabel is calling him out specifically with credit. Doesn't mean Javon Baker's making the team. Doesn't mean Javon Baker's going to have more than a dozen catches in his career with the Patriots. But I think this goes to show the way Vrabel is leading. Here's that sound.
Javon Baker made a couple of special teams tackles, and I thought you were encouraged by that on the sideline. But is it good to see someone who's trying to contribute in more than one phase in terms of trying to make the team?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. When you have players, and especially receivers, that can create a role and they can help you and they can be big and physical and everything that we see out of Javon as a receiver, when you can embrace that and they can embrace that as special teams players, guys that are big and physical and fast and willing, that translates to special teams. So excited and just happy for Javon, just being able to go out there and contribute. And when you do those things, your teammates get excited, and hopefully his confidence continues to grow.
Yeah. Phil, it's really interesting to see that because I think that goes to how Vrabel leads. He's ridden the shit out of the kid on different occasions, loudly and publicly. And every time the kid does something right, Vrabel will then say, okay, we'll give you more. We'll give you more. And Javon Baker is, as a player, responding to it by playing better for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a pretty good night for a guy who I don't believe had a reception, but makes a couple of different plays on special teams, including what I think was, after that TreVeyon Henderson score, the first tackle for the Patriots on special teams. So if that's what he can do as a guy who is vying for a sixth wide receiver role and probably is going to have to play some special teams, because if you're the sixth receiver on any roster, you got to have a role in the kicking game. That to me is important to him. And it is a good example for Vrabel to use for the rest of the team, as a guy who might have not always had his head screwed on straight a year ago, who really didn't do anything a year ago to warrant a roster spot for this season. But he can use Baker as an example for the rest of the group. Hey, if you show up and you do the little things that I'm asking you to do, I'll praise you in the media. I might even give you a job. So make sure you're on your details. I think it's important for him to have those types of examples on his roster this summer.
Flip side of that, and I think this is also telling about the way that he's leading. We can talk forever about different plays, but I think that this is more apt in terms of, so where are the Patriots right now? How are they being coached? How are they being led by Mike Vrabel? Here's Mike Vrabel talking about Drake Maye's turnover, because he said, Vrabel did, I'm going to be really hard on our best players. I'm going to expect more from them. Here's Vrabel on Maye's turnover.
Mike, just thought on Drake's performance, and I'm sure the turnover probably annoyed you with what he did.
Are you asking and answering a question at the same time? Is that what you're doing?
I got you. Your thoughts?
I would say you about summed it up. That's a bad decision, and I think we're going to need better from him, and I think he knows that, and that's obvious. So, wasn't there, and we just have to be able to find a way to get rid of the football or take a sack and punt and play defense. But to the defense's credit, they, forced a field goal. I think that was missed maybe, but they got a couple. It was a sudden change opportunity.
Here's Drake Maye's commentary on that decision and that play.
I was excited to get out there, and TreVeyon takes it the 100 yards. It was pretty sweet, but you got a little bit of drive going. Third down, and just can't do that. One first time out. You have to put a damper. I'm glad we responded well that next drive, but same time I'm glad it's something that I can control. But at the end of the day, you just can't put the defense in that position. When games matter and during the season, and I told those guys, it's on me. We got to get back out there, and glad I was able to get another series going.
Phil, I don't want to explain away turnovers, and this one's impossible to explain away because it's just a stupid move. But And that but is not about to explain it away, okay? You might hear the but and say, well, now here it comes explaining it away. I don't think a moronic move in a preseason game, extending a play, erases the effectiveness and efficiency of him. And now maybe you say, well, Tom, he just, he threw a pick in the joint practice at the end. And I would say, oh, but Bobby Wagner tipped it. And you would say, but Tommy threw 2 picks in the scrimmage last week. I'd say, yeah, but one of them was off Diggs' shoulder. So it's really only 2 picks. So I can make excuses all day long if you ask me. Still, you can't make a moronic play. Not on your first drive. So that was a moronic play, which boils down to what we like to ask here on NBC Sports Boston. Are you concerned?
I'm not concerned, capital C, yet, but he has been careless, capital C, with the football a little bit. I just think, is he so confident in himself? And to take that play from tonight as the example, is he so confident that he can step out of a tackle, that his arm is so strong that even if he's getting brought down, he still feels like he can throw it away? And that's what leads to the turnover. That's what leads to the football getting loose. I think that is part of it. I think when he gets down in the red zone and he tries to fire a fastball into Pop Douglas, kind of noticing, maybe not noticing Bobby Wagner and the fact that he is close enough to get his hands on the thing. Is he thinking that through, or is he saying, well, I got enough arm to get it by him here?
Mm-hmm.
That pick at the end of the scrimmage that Vrabel's criticism tonight is very reminiscent of the criticism he gave Drake Maye after the scrimmage, and he threw that, quote unquote game-ending pick to Alex Austin. He said, we can't make that decision. We got to, if the corner's flat-footed and he's staring you down in that situation, you got to throw it out of bounds. He's going to tell us when he feels Drake Maye screwed up. Clearly, that's a tone that he's already setting here. Those are in my opinion, those are kind of careless decisions. And I'll only add this, and why it's going to piss off Mike Vrabel to have those types of decisions get made. There is a poster in the team meeting room, which is where the post-game press conferences are at Gillette Stadium. And it says Patriots team identity in all caps at the top. Number 1, effort and finish. Number 2, ball security and ball disruption. Number 3, details, technique, and fundamentals. Number 4, make great decisions. So, that play by Drake Maye early in the game, it is what it is. It's first preseason game. He's going against a bunch of scrubs. That to me is in direct conflict with bullet points 2 and 4 on the big poster. So you can't have it. You have to eliminate those types of things if you're him.
Especially if you're the leader and you want him to lead by example. So the interesting thing here is, while Belichick did not spend a lot of time calling guys out at the podium that way, certainly not as stridently. I mean, he would say, yeah, we're not looking for that. It's not what we're looking for in that situation. Vrabel, I think, is a little more strident in his saying Drake's name and singling him out. But he's a leader, and I think that's telling too, because Belichick would have done the same thing to Brady. I mean, what are you doing? You're supposed to be our best player, and this is a Pop Warner kid wouldn't do that. So that to me is interesting to hear. Let's go down over Will Campbell's play tonight. What did you see on the fumble by Maye? It looked to me, I'll just give you a quick one because you're busy as hell. It looked like they ran kind of a stunt or a twist, whichever you want to call it. Campbell did a nice job blocking down on the edge defender who came inside, did a nice job locking him up. But then there was a twist going on, and Jared Wilson got caught up in the trash, as they like to say in the business, which led to the sack. Did you have it the same way? They friggin' never showed a replay, a decent one.
Yeah, that looked like what you would call a me game. So usually it's the defensive end who gets to call it, or the coach. It comes from the sideline, but it's a me game is where the defensive end is the one who goes in first and kind of sets a pick on the guard, and then it's the defensive tackle who wraps around. And when you execute a play like that, what's interesting to me is the way you put it was, Will Campbell took care of his guy and kind of rode him down inside.
He needed to read it.
He wanted to go down inside. Does he have to react and say, oh, this guy is really taking a hard angle in. I have to be ready for the bender to come around, for the D tackle to come around and attack my edge. I don't know what they're teaching in that situation. That to me would be a good question to ask Vrabel the next time we get a chance to talk to him. But what stands out to me about that play, not knowing who to blame necessarily for the pressure, although, Drake Maye is at the top of the list when it comes to what ultimately happened there, is that you do have two rookies on the left side of the line. And these are issues that are going to pop up. The communication's going to be stressed. Understanding of what an opposing defense is trying to do to you in real time is going to be stressed. Understanding of your own offense as you're trying to figure out this Josh McDaniels thing and what he's teaching is going to be stressed. And so even though I think both those players are going to ultimately be good NFL players, there's going to be some growing pains involved here when you have those two guys, not just on the line, but right next to each other. Mm-hmm. And so that to me, that, is worthy of consideration for us and for the team. Is it in our best interest to have two rookies playing alongside each other when we're trying to protect our young quarterback?
Yeah, that's the thing you have to weigh, because as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, well, what's the harm if by week 8, these two guys will be seemingly veterans. On the other hand, too, by week 8, if they're playing like two rookies next to each other, Josh Dobbs might be starting. So you don't want that. We haven't really highlighted TreVeyon Henderson because
Can I just say one more thing really quickly about
Why,
Will Campbell?
sure, yeah.
Sorry. One more thing, because this was
he was rototilling, guys.
part of the fun of tonight. Outside of those TreVeyon Henderson runs and Antonio Gibson looking explosive, he was mauling people in the run game. There were two separate plays where he was at least 10 yards down the field from the line of scrimmage blocking people. Now, usually they're lighter than him. Linebackers, I think one was maybe a corner where he kind of got out of space and just caught a corner.
On the long Henderson run, I think.
But, boy, I mean, effort and finish. You're talking about those four the pillars of a Mike Vrabel program. He showed it there. And so that's part of the reason they like this guy as much as they do.
All right, let's highlight the receiver room, because we can highlight Henderson and might as well. We're just going to tell you what we've been telling you for a couple of weeks, which is he is laterally explosive. He cuts quickly. He's strong. I mean, the kick return highlighted a lot of the things that he's strong at, as did the reception. He made a nice catch. He had heat on him immediately on the reception now. He stepped out of the tackle and then delivered really a concussive hit to the poor cornerback that I think probably should have been called up on to the spotter, because that looked like it hurt. But on the kick return, too, it's a guy who can change direction quickly. He gets up to full speed in a hiccup, and then can run through anything that is a tentative tackle, and also the breakaway finishing speed, too. Phil.
Do you feel the way I do? And I felt this way before the game tonight, so I don't want people to believe that I've been moved only by a preseason game against second, third, and fourth stringers. Do you feel he's their best back?
No. I need more data.
Need more. Okay.
Need more
TBD.
data. Because if Ramondre Stevenson runs the football behind a capable offensive line and doesn't fumble, he's a friggin' beast. He is really, really good. And we've seen it. It's just a couple years in the rear view, because he keeps getting hit before he gets to the line of scrimmage, and then he started dropping the ball, so we forget just how ridiculous he can be after contact at the 4 and 5 yard range, where he's got a 4-yard run that turns into a 12-yard run. So, but I think it's a really good running back room right now, that if you're a kid and you wanted to design a poster for yourself that had the identity of the 2025 Patriots, you'd have TreVeyon Henderson in front with his arms crossed, and then two bigger backs on either side of him like that. Like, woo. Okay, that's woo. Can you even see me, Phil?
I can, yeah. You know what this is very reminiscent of?
What?
Is the you ever seen the law firm poster with Ty Law and Lawyer Malloy?
That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
100%. Did you have the law firm in your house?
I never had it. No, I didn't, but I had buddies who did, so I remember it very distinctly.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. That's going to be those three running backs could well be the identity of the team. Be that as it may, we'll talk receivers right now. Jaylen Pulk, leave him with a bad wing. How does that shake up the receiver room? And what did Efton Chisholm 3 do to his stock tonight?
First of all, you feel for Jaylen Pulk, because I wonder now if this injury is just going to eliminate his ability to make enough of an impact to show people that he's worthy of a roster spot. So you hate to see guys lose opportunities because they're getting hurt. He lost a lot of opportunities in the spring because he was coming back off surgery. It looked like maybe a shoulder or an arm type of injury that knocked him out of the game tonight. What that does is, to me, it narrows that battle for that sixth receiver spot. If there's going to be one, they don't have to keep six, but if they'd like to keep six, now to me, it is very clearly, if Polk is going to miss significant time, between Baker, who we just talked about, I thought had a pretty good night, and Efton Chisholm. Efton Chisholm, to me, Tom, is what you want in a slot receiver. Unfortunately for him, they already have one in Pop Douglas, and he might be their best receiver this year. But he's quick. He seems to catch it when he has the opportunity to. Obviously, he's small, so there was a pass that sailed over his head from Josh Dobbs today, who I thought was not accurate at all. I thought he had a rough night.
Agreed.
But Chisholm, there were two plays I loved. One was the touchdown catch, because that ball got tipped at the line. It was practically end over end by the time it got to him. Good focus, concentration, ability to get in the end zone. And then the screenplay that put them right almost on the goal line on 1st and 20, where he catches a little tunnel screen and just is holding on to that thing for dear life. Ball security, right? Another one of Vrabel's pillars there. I just thought that was a smart, heady play. And I really liked the night that he had tonight. If he continues to have preseason games like this, Tom, this tape goes out to the rest of the league. If he has more games like this one, if he gets cut and they want to put him on the practice squad, that to me is a risk, because there might be teams out there that are seeing this tape and others to come, and they say, we could use that guy on our roster. Patriots cut him. Let's scoop him up. I think he might run that risk if he has a couple more preseason games like this one tonight.
Yeah, that's where it's very important during cutdown time, is to figure out, because those teams would have to put that player that they claim on their 53. So that's why sometimes teams will say, you know what? We're going to release him. Braxton Berrios being the perfect example as a guy who was cut. Patriots, I think, tried to bury him in 2019 during their preseason. They kept Demarius. I love the guy too. DT Thomas. Demarius or Demarius?
Demarius.
Thank you. He was terrific. I liked him.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, too bad. Meanwhile, they couldn't get Braxton Berrios through. He got claimed. He went on to be a fairly decent little player for the Jets and the Dolphins. But that's what they're going to see there. Kyle Williams got behind the defense, and Josh Dobbs was a little shy. The pass or not, failed to launch. He still got it.
We should have had you on the color commentary tonight.
Oh, imagine if Sosi wouldn't know whether he should have go blind.
I feel for Kyle Williams as a guy who's had a pretty quiet last few days. He's probably dying to make a play down the field, and he gets by his man. And boy, I think Josh Dobbs underthrew him by about 10 yards. That to me is a really difficult look for a guy that you're hoping can keep you in games if Drake Maye were to ever get hurt. I also found it hilarious. I don't know if you happen to catch this, but on the television broadcast, right after Josh Dobbs ran in, he had a little bit of a scramble drill touchdown in the low red zone that included him turning his full backside to the goal line that he was trying to attack in a sort of whirling dervish kind of in-pocket display of, I guess, athleticism. Ended up finding his way back around to actually get into the end zone, and they cut to Vrabel on the sideline, and he just rolled his eyes as hard as I've ever seen a head coach roll his eyes, and shook his head like, what the hell was that? So, like on the one hand, good instinctive play to just put it in the end zone in a weird situation. On the other, just not a sound football play that was executed the way it was drawn up. I just didn't think the backup quarterback, who has had his moments, I want to be fair to him, has had his moments in practice lately. I didn't think he had a good night at all.
Quoting the nose from earlier in the week, Josh Dobbs is growing on me. That's what I said. The nose. Had a kicker squabble. Continues to unfold. JP Romo bombs in a 57-yarder.
57 yards. I think that would have been good from 60.
That's enough out of that. Also, defensively, we haven't mentioned a thing. Milton Williams looked good on the first drive. Patriots didn't muster much of a pass rush. Give you a couple other names. I like Jaylen Hawkins. I think he's a good safety. He's a factor. And I think when you look at the depth of their secondary, presuming you're going to have your two starting corners come back, Alex Austin and DJ James are good outside corners. The Patriots have had a dearth. That means not enough, right? Yeah, glut is too much. Dearth is not enough. They've had a dearth of outside corners. That's why you've seen Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones miscast as outside corners. When you look at those two guys I mentioned as depth, the two starters, Marcus Jones inside, and we're not even getting to the safety group, you got some good coverage guys who can also hit and tackle.
I agree. DJ James with the pick tonight, he's done nothing but be around the football constantly this camp, so good for him. He's undersized, but he just has a knack for making plays, apparently. I also thought just sort of an under-the-radar name and not somebody that I would necessarily have on the roster right now if you made me choose a 53. But Isaiah Battle, the corner, number 35, 6'3", long arms. I thought contributed to a couple different pass breakups. I thought he did a nice job tonight as well. So they're deep at corner with, I think NFL caliber guys are guys that are sort of sniffing around being NFL caliber. So they should end up having a pretty strong group, and I bet they end up having a couple guys on the practice squad that they like.
My two personal favorites that I'm going to ask about, because I didn't see really much of them, although we got out there, Anthony Jennings and Dirty Del Pettis. Phil, you had better eyes on the game than me. I was on BST from 10 to 11. Anything from those guys?
Dirty Del Pettis with one of the hits of the night in the open field, little throw out into the flat, just got a running start and just, issued the kind of hit that forced you to give him that nickname. Not that it was dirty in an illegal sense, but just dirty in a, boy, that really must have hurt kind of sense.
Yeah, that's how I mean it with him. Although the first time I called him Dirty Del, he was bludgeoning somebody after a whistle last year.
I think he pile drived Hunter Henry or something. It was like in the middle of the field. He drilled one of their most important players, and you've just called him Dirty Del ever since. But that's sort of who he is. He loves to hit people in practice. Usually you're thudding guys. Even this year and last year, he thuds harder than most.
Penny Jennings, what are we thinking there?
Not a great sign for him. He's playing into the fourth quarter, Tom, as a guy who started a lot of football games. And I still think as an NFL player, like I understand you want pass rushers. You probably want twitchy, explosive athleticism on the edge in this defense. But there's got to be room for a run stuffer out there, doesn't there? I just think he's a good player. I would have him on my roster, but it seems like he might be on the outside looking in.
Did Marcus Bryant stink at right tackle in place of Morgan Moses?
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I don't think there were many plays that I could tell you he ruined.
Good.
So good for him.
That's great.
Right? I mean, they need something back there at tackle, and it looks like they do favor him over DeMontre Jacobs, who is the other backup tackle who, again, like Jennings, was playing late into the fourth quarter.
And I asked that question because last year there were many plays that were ruined by players who should not be ruining plays. So I'm trying to set the baseline at, okay, did he ruin anything? Did he stink? Didn't stink? Great. Then we can get to, was he average? So we got a didn't stink from Marcus Bryant so far, pending further review. Speaking of further reviews, this review is done, okay? This is the end of Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, The Aftermath. Phil, 19 games to go before the playoffs. Woo! One down. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. It's going to be a nice one out there, okay? See you later. Annie Hall, thank you, bud. Oh, and Shabu, you're killing it back there, whatever the buttons and stuff. Great job.